Hi, my name's Eric and I'm developing ShantyTown, a city block building game where you create unique urban environments. I've been working on ShantyTown for a year now, and with two main goals in mind. First, make a small game, and second, find a publisher. Here's how I failed both of those goals.
What did you say?
When I started ShantyTown, I knew I would be following in the footsteps of my previous game, Kainga. This is the story of how my first game found success. A long time ago, I started dabbling with Unreal because I had a visual scripting system called Blueprints that really appealed to me. My goal was to create a spiritual successor to an old game I loved called Populous: The Beginning. But in the end, the game ended up being more like a roguelite village builder game. Anyways, I was building the game during the evenings and weekends while working full-time at a soul-crushing marketing agency. Once the game began looking good, I started posting GIFs on Reddit and Twitter, trying to get a following for a Kickstarter campaign. The Kickstarter passed its goal, but the real win was this GIF that went a bit viral and caught the eye of multiple publishers, including the one I ended up signing with, Green Man Gaming. They agreed to fund the development of the game for the next 2 years, allowing me to quit my job and work full-time on this passion project. There is much more to that story, but I'll stay focused on the topic at hand. For ShantyTown, I tried to follow a similar path. I started right away and had a unique idea of building only a single city block. And as soon as the game looked decent, I created a pitch deck and started reaching out to publishers. I emailed the best indie publishers, my favorite indie publishers, and actually any indie publisher that might have an interest in this game. Publishers are mainly looking for two things. Is the game marketable, and can the developer actually finish it? ShantyTown is a unique concept, with similar titles earning quite a bit, so it seemed quite marketable. And with Kainga as my proof of experience, a publisher can breathe easy knowing that I have the capacity to finish this project on time and under budget. I was feeling pretty confident with my chances of getting a publishing contract within a few months. The responses I got were all initially positive, but as the weeks and months went by, I couldn't get anyone to offer a contract and seal the deal. What I didn't know at the time was that there was an industry-wide crunch going on and funding had already dried up. When I learned this came as a bit of a shock, as 2023 was one of the greatest years of gaming that came out, in terms of quality and profits, with a few exceptions. But companies were downsizing, venture capital was nowhere to be found, and publishers were cutting projects and shuttering studios.
Why?
Some believe it's due to an overhiring phase during COVID, maybe that increasing interest rates were more appealing than long-term investment in games, or perhaps just companies trying to maximize profits, or a number of other possibilities, and probably a combination of all of the above. The result was that I was never able to get a contract, even with good connections, good reputation, and in my mind, a good title. So what's the solution? I decided to go the route of self-publishing.
I guess you're just gonna have to do it yourself. I'm sorry.
I won't go into the details, but basically I found a government fund to help me bring this project to life. Of course, this puts a lot more work on my plate, including doing all the marketing, localization, PR, porting, and all the things that publishers usually take care of. But I'm ready for that challenge.
Pancakes.
So that's how I failed at finding a publisher. What about failing at making a small game? Well, the premise of ShantyTown is you build a single city block only.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
But I kept finding myself diving into the world building more and more, and the floating cross-section of land surrounded by a painted skyline wasn't satisfying my need to make that weird and interesting world. So I thought, what if there was a rest of the world visible? So just to test it, I added a bit of landscape and some water. I created a material for that landmass with a few different colors and made those colors adjust based on the angle of the slope. Then I added my grass that was created in a previous devlog to spawn only on that green material and added the same shine to the material itself. I decided to experiment with the foliage tool and added some basic building shapes to paint on background buildings. The buildings themselves use random colors chosen by their world location based on the map's color palette. I added some buildings here and there, created some distant objects like highways, mountains, and a seawall holding the ocean back. I was doing some experimenting with the grass system and came up with a grass type, which creates a dense urban environment. The The idea was to create something like the scene of the urban sprawl in Mexico City. And it looks really cool. It feels much more immersive to see the outer world in comparison to the area you're building. I quickly realized how this process could easily get out of hand, as the more detail that I added, the more detail would need to be added. If the houses had front doors, they would need paths to the road, obviously, and fences, and gutters, and lawn ornaments, and everything. That would be impossible. I'd be tasked with creating something I couldn't complete. Worlds that detailed take teams of hundreds of people to create.
I am only one man.
So I decided to set some restrictions. Background detail would be very restricted, and the look and feel would be heavily stylized, creating the impression of a wider world rather than showing off all of its intricacies. I started to do this by making the buildings a single color, and then I thought it could be interesting to change that color by distance from the camera. Of course, red and blue are unusual choices, but there's something worth investigating here. I couldn't go back on the larger map idea, but I did decide to do a new version of the map, as this one was feeling a bit too unoriginal for me. I went back to what started this whole need for world building, that map in a pipe, and this is what I have. And I really like the way it's turning out. When you can see the rest of the pipe, it really makes it feel like an interesting world. I added some terraced fields, elevated houses, factory smokestacks, and some silo-like structures with colonies inside. Now this is a cool world to build in. I took this as an opportunity to do a bit of consolidation. Now you can have multiple playable zones in different parts of this single map. I also revamped the tutorial to be able to build a town around this lighthouse. And I have to say, I'm really loving the direction this is going. With some outside help, I worked on the lighting, coloring, fogging, and background to pull the area together, with a full day and night cycle. And that's how I failed making a smaller game. I'm going to try to rein in the scope as much as I can, but for now I'm having fun going in this direction. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If ShantyTown looks interesting to you, be sure to wishlist the game on Steam, as that really does help small developers. Or you can subscribe to follow along. Thank you for your time, and thank you for checking out ShantyTown. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.